All right, welcome in to the Logan Ward Show. We have the Super Bowl preview here today. Be sure to subscribe wherever you're listening. I want to preview the Super Bowl. We're going to talk about how both teams can win, talk a little bit about legacy and what this means for both teams if they were to win the Super Bowl. So let's just dive right in, all right? Okay. So let's talk about how the Philadelphia Eagles win this game. They have a really good defense. They were top 2 in points allowed this season defensively. They have a really good defensive front with Jalen Carter. And on the secondary, they have a young defense, but one that has played really well recently. They played well against Washington. They played well against the Packers. Obviously, the turnovers for the Packers were kind of the Achilles heel for them in that game earlier in the playoffs. And so this defense is going to be what I think leads the Eagles. If they can get after Patrick Mahomes, we've seen that anytime you get after Patrick Mahomes, that's how you can beat him. Now, we saw in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago against Tampa, Patrick Mahomes was pretty much neutralized. That was a blowout, and the Bucs kind of did whatever they wanted. Now, the offensive line was banged up for the Chiefs. That's not the case now, but that's how you can get after him. If you can pressure him with 4, and you don't have to send blitzes, I think that's how you can beat Mahomes. If you blitz, and you see this, and I think the numbers back this up, is that if you blitz Patrick Mahomes, you are going to pay. He is one of the best quarterbacks against the blitz in all of the NFL, and he goes up against a diabolical blitzer in Steve Spagnuolo every game. Every day of practice, he goes in and he is playing and practicing against that guy. So he probably knows every blitz that you could possibly send him. He is lethal in blitz. So the Eagles are going to have to try to get after him with just 4, not send any extra people, make sure that you can play coverage, obviously man or zone on the outsides, and try to get after him that way. Offensively, for the Eagles, I think their playbook should just be pretty much give Saquon Barkley the ball as many times as we possibly can. If Saquon can average 4 to 5 yards a carry, they're going to win this game. If Saquon continues to put Philadelphia in 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, that's going to be the spot that Philadelphia wants to be in. If the defensive front for the Chiefs and Steve Spagnuolo can kind of dial some things up to get him behind the chains, force Jalen Hurts to make some plays, then I think they might be in trouble. Jalen Hurts played the best game of his career in that Super Bowl 2 years ago against the Chiefs. He had the best game of his career. He had the fumble early in the first half, which kind of was a turning point in the game, but he had his best game by far of his career in that Super Bowl. Do I think that that's going to happen again? I do not. I don't think that he is going to have the type of game that he did 2 years ago. Remember the secondary, Trent McDuffie, George Karlaftis, some of those key defensive players for the Kansas City Chiefs 2 years ago were rookies. That was their rookie season. And so they've been in the league. They've seen more things. They know more things. Trent McDuffie has definitely grown into one of the top secondary players in all of the NFL. And so I don't think that Jalen Hurts is going to have the game that he had 2 years ago against the Chiefs in Arizona. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't think Jalen Hurts can't have a good game. I still think that he can, and I think that he's going to be able to use his legs a little bit more. I know that the injury was kind of bothering him a little bit against Washington. He said, yeah, he's playing no matter what. Like that's not going to be an issue. He's not on the injury report or anything. The Eagles on here, I mean, they are pretty healthy. We have to watch out for Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson, but they've been full participants this week. So the last practice that they had, the walkthrough on the 6th, they were full participants. So should be good to go. Now, I do think that could hurt the Eagles, but for the Eagles to win, they're going to have to get pressure with their defensive line only rushing forward. Jalen Carter's going to have a good game, and I think that Saquon's going to have probably 4 yards a carry. If you can get 4 to 5 yards a carry, 4.5 yards, then they're going to win the game. If they can just establish the run, keep Patrick Mahomes and that offense off the field, and just a heavy dose of Saquon, maybe some RPOs to A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. All right. Okay, so how will the Chiefs win? How will the Chiefs win the game? The Chiefs are going to win this game if their defense shows up and Chris Jones has what Chris Jones has typically done in the postseason, which is play at a high level. If they can continue to do that with Karlaftis, Nick Bolton, their front 7, if they can control the line of scrimmage and at least mitigate Saquon, because Saquon's going to get his. Saquon is still going to produce, and he's still going to get the yardage. However, if you can minimize it, again, it's the opposite of what I just said. If the Chiefs can make Saquon average 3 yards a carry, 2 yards a carry, and instead of 3rd and 1, you're getting in 3rd and 4s, that's going to be the difference. I do think that they're going to have a better game plan. I do think that Steve Spagnuolo, who's the best defensive coordinator in all of football, I think he's going to have an opportunity to make some splash plays, dial up some blitzes, some things exactly like we saw against Josh Allen, who is also an incredible threat with his legs like Jalen Hurts. And I think that this Chiefs team has to just be sound. I don't think that they're going to allow Saquon to get 40, 60-yard runs. They're the best tackling team in all of football. So I don't think that they're going to have those. Now, will Saquon have a 10, 12, 15-yard run? Yeah, probably, because if you give the ball to him, 28 times, he's probably going to pop one that's 10 to 15 yards. I don't think that you're going to see the 40 to 60-yard runs like he has the last couple of weeks. Last week against the Commanders, I mean, that is a bad defense. The Commanders were not good defensively. They just were able to outscore the Lions. Last week, they couldn't do anything. And defensively, they just let the Eagles run all over them. That's not going to be the case with the Kansas City Chiefs. They're too good at tackling. They're too defensively sound. And they have the best defensive coordinator in all of football. So if they can limit Saquon's ability to make it 3rd and short, I think they can win the game. I think that's the success. That's the way that they will win the game. Offensively, I think it's going to be Chiefs trusting their wide receivers. You saw this last year with Sky Moore. I mean, all last year, the talk around Kansas City was about how bad their wide receivers were and how in the playoffs, the amount of drops that wide receiver core had for the Chiefs, and yet they still won the Super Bowl, and yet in these situations, late game, in overtime, to force overtime, they're going to Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney. They're throwing the ball to those guys. I think that's going to be the same recipe now. I think you're going to get the ball to Hollywood Brown and DeAndre Hopkins, who those two are better than Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore. I think you'll still get a little bit of a dose of Travis Kelce, and then we're going to see Patrick Mahomes doing what he does in the postseason, which is use his legs as efficiently as anyone has ever done it in the NFL. Josh Allen is a more dynamic runner. Lamar Jackson is a more dynamic runner, but we see that in the regular season. Mahomes doesn't use his legs really until the postseason. And so you kind of forget about it, I think. And now we're getting to the point where you've seen him in enough games in the postseason that you're like, oh yeah, he runs a lot in the postseason. And I think that we're going to see that again. I don't think that there's a ton of ways to stop the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. Like I just said, if you blitz him, he's going to make you play. If you go against him in zone like Buffalo did in that first drive in the AFC Championship game, he's going to pick you apart and just dink and dunk right down the field, know exactly where to go with the ball, touchdown. If you play man, he's going to find the matchup that he wants and the matchup that he likes. So I don't think that there's a real good formula to stop him besides getting pressure with 4. And this offensive line, even though it's been kind of makeshift, they moved Joe Thuney from guard to tackle. Even though it has not been great this season, it has been formidable enough, I think, to make the plays that the offensive line need to make. So I do think that Mahomes is going to test these young corners, Cooper DeJean, safety. I think that they're going to test them, and they're really going to see what they're all about. I mean, they've played well the last couple of weeks, but this is in the Super Bowl against Patrick Mahomes. This is big. So those are some of the ways that I think both teams can win the game. Those are the things that I think have to happen in order for that team to win the game. All right. Let's talk a little bit about the legacies. What if the Chiefs win the Super Bowl? If the Chiefs win the Super Bowl, they should be considered the best dynasty in NFL. And people will point to, obviously, the Patriots. And this was asked of Gronk on Super Bowl on Media Row. And he said they're not there yet. But then he kind of qualified it as there were 2 different Patriot dynasties. And that's what we have to look at. We can't look at the Patriots as one giant dynasty because they were 10 years apart. They were 10 years apart between winning the last one and winning the first and the second stint. The rest of the league had changed. The rest of the team had changed. The only difference was Tom Brady. So in 2002, the Patriots, ironically, in New Orleans, where in the Superdome, where they are going to be playing tomorrow night, beat St. Louis. They win another one in 2004 and another one in 2005. So they have 3 Super Bowls in 4 years. They do not win another Super Bowl until 2015. Now, they got there. They got there in 2008. They got there in 2012. But they didn't win again until 2015. And then you have the 2015, 16, 17, 18 kind of run, 19 run. So you have 2 different, I would say you have 2 different dynasties. And so in terms of a 5-year stretch, if the Chiefs in 5 years have 4 Super Bowl rings, another appearance in 6 seasons, and in 2019 they went to the AFC title game. And if they would have beat Brady, who Mahomes didn't get the ball in that overtime, if they would have beat Brady in New England in that drive or in that game, you play the Rams, you probably like your chances. But this would be the best dynasty in the NFL. To have Tyreek Hill in 2020, to then get rid of him, trade him, and then win 2 consecutive Super Bowls, going for a third. It's the greatest 5-year, 6-year stretch in the NFL, in NFL history, if you are to win the three-peat. 4 Super Bowls in 6 years with a Super Bowl appearance as well. 5 Super Bowl appearances, 6 years. 4 rings. That's the best stretch of any team. Even including the 2004, 2005, 2002 to 2005 Patriots. It's the best run. So Mahomes would be put into that rare category. He's already chasing Tom Brady, but he would have 4 rings before the age of 30. And I truly don't think that Mahomes is going to get to 7. Even if he wins tomorrow night, I don't think that he's going to get to 7 because there are going to be a lot of moving parts. I don't know how much longer Andy Reid's going to want to coach. He said he's coming back next year, but you can't imagine that this team is going to four-peat. And so I don't know if there's a way for him to get to 7. I also don't think that there's necessarily a way for him to get to 10 Super Bowls like Tom Brady did. I think the AFC is tougher now. I know that, I guess you could say your contemporaries with Patrick Mahomes is Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and Josh Allen. Back then you had Brady, Peyton Manning, Ben Roethlisberger. I guess that's your kind of comp. And then, of course, you have Justin Herbert, who's kind of out there. You had Phillip Rivers, both with the Chargers, and just kind of there. But I think, obviously, he would be considered the second, maybe the best player of all time. If you can three-peat, get what he has done in the last couple of years. And the thing about Mahomes is that their roles are kind of reversed from Brady. Brady's first couple Super Bowls, it was defensive-led. It was led by Teddy Bruschi and Mike Vrabel and that tough defense. And Brady was kind of a game manager, just kind of wasn't really doing a ton. Later in his career, in that 2015, 16 to 19 run there, that's when he was the guy. This has been opposite. Mahomes has been the guy since he has started. He's been the one who's throwing for all the yards. He has an MVP, the MVPs. He has the Pro Bowls. He has the first team All-Pros. He has these accolades because he was the one that was carrying the offense for the most part. And then now, the last couple of years, it's been a defensive team, and he's been kind of dinking and dunking and just making the right read and consistently making the right play. And that's what has made Mahomes so good. So if the Chiefs were to three-peat, they would be, I think, considered the best dynasty in the NFL. You'd have 4 Super Bowl rings in 6 years, 5 Super Bowl appearances. And your one year that you didn't make it to the Super Bowl, you lost in overtime to Cincinnati. All right, so what if the Eagles win? What if the Eagles win? Well, if the Eagles win, I think it is a coronation of Howie Roseman that he was able to do the thing that nobody else has been able to do, and that's beat the Chiefs recently. That he was able to create a team, make the correct football decisions to beat the Chiefs. The 49ers have tried it. The Eagles tried it a couple years ago. And it hasn't worked out. But if they were to win, and especially if like Saquon Barkley has an incredible game and is named MVP, that's a Howie Roseman coronation. That how in the world did you get Saquon on this team? How did you get A.J. Brown on this team from the trades a couple years ago? How is it that you lose your all-pro center and Jason Kelce, he retires, and your offensive line is just as good as it was a couple of years ago? You're moving all these pieces around. Leonard Dickerson's hurt. Juergens is hurt. And you still win. I think it would be a coronation for Howie Roseman. I also think that Nick Sirianni would have a lot taken off his back. I do still think, and I don't necessarily think that Sirianni is a great head coach. I think he, again, is a product of what has been given to him with Howie Roseman and the team there, the general manager. And I do think that that is the case. But if you win a Super Bowl, you buy yourself years. You buy yourself some time. Now, Philadelphia is a tough place. They're a tough place. Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl a couple years later. He's out. So it can go bad quickly, but I do think that Sirianni would buy him some time. If they lose and the Chiefs beat them again, I think that there's some conversations about Nick Sirianni. Not that they're going to fire him right now, but much like there was, I think, some conversations on how the season ended last year with the kind of collapse that they had at the end of the year and losing to the Bucs in the playoffs, I do think that there was a lot of heat and a lot of conversations about Nick Sirianni's job security at the beginning of the season. And then you start out this year 2-2 before you hit the bye week. You lost to the Bucs again and you lose to the Falcons. And there's, again, this enormous amount of pressure on Nick Sirianni. And then you rattle off these wins. You've won, 12 of your last 13 games. And here you are 1 win away from hoisting the Lombardi. And so it would buy Nick Sirianni some time. All right. My final prediction. I am going to say Kansas City 27, Eagles 24. I have the Chiefs winning, and I have the Chiefs with the three-peat. I think their defense has been playing better. Patrick Mahomes has been in these moments time and time again, and he has always delivered. And I think that he's going to deliver once again. And, what comes next? Does Travis Kelce retire? I'm not sure. But I think that this matchup, I think, favors the Chiefs. And I don't think that there's really any matchup from an NFC team that would give the Chiefs problems. The only one I think maybe is I guess you could have said Detroit with their offensive line and their kind of gadget plays. You trust Jared Goff if he has a clean pocket more than maybe Jalen Hurts. But I think this Chiefs team is too good. They're too well coached. They have the best defense coordinator. They have the best offensive head coach in the league. They have the best quarterback. And their weapons are better now than what they've been. With Isaiah Pacheco back, with Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, DeAndre Hopkins, and of course, Travis Kelce. So the Chiefs win 27-24 is my final prediction for the Super Bowl. Football season has come to an end. We'll be talking a little bit more basketball coming up here on the podcast. So we'll be doing that. We might have, as we get closer to March Madness, might have some March Madness brackets for y'all to do as well. Talking NBA soon. If you did not see LeBron James put up 42, 17, and 8 the other night against Golden State, I mean, the man is 40 years old and dropping 42 points, 17 rebounds, 8 assists. And at one point went on a 9-0 run himself, just shooting from the logo, shooting threes. It was insane. But we'll be talking a little bit more NBA coming up and then get into draft season for the NFL. So a lot of good things. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. If you're on our YouTube channel, hit that like button, hit subscribe, and we'll check you out in the next video. Peace.